Well, hey everybody, this is Bill, and this is part 3 of my Debt Elimination Wealth Building Seminar. Now, in the first 2 parts, you learned specifically how to get out of debt just using your current income. But knowing how to do it won't help you at all if you're not motivated to actually do it. So this part 3, is the motivational part. This will talk about a little bit more about the damage that credit will do to your long-term financial situation, and let you see what is really happening when you use that credit card. Now, this video, part 3, can be watched as a standalone video, but it makes more sense in context if you watch the first 2 before you watch this one. So here you go. Part 3.
So welcome back to part 3 of the seminar, Eliminating Your Debt and Building Wealth. And as I said at the end of the last session, it's relatively easy for me to teach you the numbers of how to work your numbers to get out of debt. The more difficult thing is to change your thinking. And we see that if your habits don't change, your financially secure, stress-free future is unlikely. So in this next section, we want to talk about debt and what it really does to you and the damage that it does to you in an effort to make you change your habits. Because if you don't, nothing's ever going to happen. I told you earlier about the guy that came up to me a couple years later after the seminar, and he was so excited because he was totally debt-free, including 2 houses. I had another friend who attended the seminar when I taught it, and he was so excited about it. 6 months later, he drove into church with a brand new, spanking brand new, beautiful pickup truck. Well, there you go. You know, he's still in debt, probably. I mean, I don't know, but you have to change your habits in order for this to be effective. Oops, stay there. So I want to talk a little bit about debt. We have been taught to be consumers right from the very beginning. Go back, Cole. Yeah. We have been taught to be consumers. And it never used to be this way. It's basically a baby boomer thing. It started, okay? In the 1960s was the first credit card, and it was the Diners Club card, and it was an exclusive card. It was hard to get it. And it was could only be used in exclusive restaurants around town, and it had to be paid off every month. That was the beginning of the credit card industry, the Diners Club card. And then along came Visa and MasterCard and all those, and they made it easier to qualify for it, and they started the revolving account where you can, keep a balance on there and just pay off the little amount at a time. And but the people that went through the Great Depression specifically had developed a mentality of living frugally and saving for a rainy day because they had been through it. And so every penny that they had, they saved. I can remember when I was a kid, we'd have Christmas and we'd open the presents and we'd have to be very careful in opening the paper so we wouldn't tear the paper. We could fold it up and save it and use it next year. In this day and age, how absurd that sounds, but that's the mentality of save everything. So things have radically changed in the past 50 years or so. That's exactly right. And we make jokes out of it. Everybody knows that everybody has debt and everybody's saddled with it, and so we make jokes about it, like a bumper sticker that says, I owe, so off to work I go. You ever seen that? It's a joke. It's just, lighthearted. Yeah, that's just the way it is. How about, he who dies with the most toys wins? And then there's one that says, he who dies with his credit cards maxed out wins. So, but the whole use of debt is absolutely pervasive in our society. And it's expected, it's the norm, and you're looked at funny if you don't do it. Absolutely. All of the advertising that we see teaches us that. And it's called the monthly payment trap. Have you ever noticed how many times you see something advertised that they don't even tell you the price? The only thing they tell you is the monthly payment. One of the biggest offenders of this is car ads on TV or on cable or wherever, on the internet. Some big, beautiful four-wheel drive pickup truck splashing through the snow, or a luxury car going down Madison Avenue or something like that. And the only thing they show you is the monthly payment. And many times, they don't even tell you this. Many times the monthly payment is the lease payment, not the purchase payment. And so they're just pushing payment, payment, payment. You can look in catalogs and you see, you can buy this stereo system for $9 a month. It doesn't even have the price, the total price. Yeah, exactly. So we are being pushed all the time into using debt. Now, look at this next slide. New. Pay interest only and lower your payments. This is from the United Jersey Home Equity Line of Credit. Look at this. If you get a $50,000 line of credit, normally your payments would be $516, but if you do the interest only, your payment is only $308. That means you're saving $208 a month. Isn't that fantastic? This was a real honest-to-goodness ad. I'll be blunt. This ad is for the financially illiterate, people that don't understand what's going on. You can save $208 a month. That sounds so fantastic. You deserve to save that amount of money. Exactly. $200 more to spend. 10 years down the road, you still owe $50,000 or more. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. So let's take a little bit closer look at credit cards. So on your credit card, let's say you're going to buy a $2,000 piece of furniture at a purchase and at 19.8% interest. And let's say now that you make the minimum payments on that credit card. Any idea how long it'll take to pay that off? 4 years? 10 or 15? Okay. If you make the minimum payment on a $2,000 balance on a 19.8% credit card, 31 years and 2 months to pay it off. 31 years. And not only that, you'll pay $8,200 in interest, which means that your total cost is $10,202 for a $2,000 sofa. So if you walked into a furniture store and you saw a price on that couch of $10,000, what would you do? You'd laugh, right? You got to be kidding me. But it's $2,000. I can fit that in my payments, So whip out the plastic and buy it on. And you never realize that if you're going to make the minimum payment, which I'll give you a clue, most people make the minimum payments. It's going to be 31 years to pay it off. And what do you think the sofa will look like when you finally pay it off? Yep.
I think most people are paying for stuff they don't have anymore on credit cards.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your mortgage. The word mortgage, from the Latin words mortis, which means death, and gage, which means a pledge or a grip. In other words, your mortgage literally means death grip. Yep. So the real cost of your mortgage, if you have a $200,000 house for 30 years at 5%, your regular payment amount is $1,073. You're going to pay a total interest of $186,000 on a $200,000 loan, and that's if you've got a 5%. I mean, they're running a little bit lower right now if you buy a new one, but most people have a little bit higher than that because they've had it for a while. So the total purchase is $386,500 for a $200,000 house. So do you think you can find a better use for that $186,000 that you spend in interest? So the idea here is that if you have to get a mortgage for a house, you want to pay it off as fast as you possibly can to be able to save as much money as you possibly can. Yeah. A 15-year loan, the payment is twice as long. No. Yeah, if you get a 15-year loan instead of a 30-year loan, I don't know the numbers, but the payment probably only goes up 20 or 30%, not 100%. It doesn't double. So, okay, now car payments. Let's look at car payments. The real cost of car payments. If you make a $300 car payment for half of your working life, and $300 now, if you're going to buy a new car, is real low. But if you buy a used car and you get a $300 loan on it, you will give up $1,898 per month in your future so that you can buy that car on credit now. In other words, if you invest $300 a month at 10%, you could draw down $1,898 per month for the rest of your life. And so what we recommend, or what we've done, is, like I said before, we buy cars usually around 100 or 125,000 miles, and they're still good for another 100,000. And until recently, we've rarely paid more than $3,000 or $4,000 for a car. Now, just within the past year, we bought 2 cars at about $6,000 each, I think.
The car was about 4 and the truck was about
4,000 and 6,000. Okay, but once again, we paid cash for them because we are debt-free enough now that we were able to save that money.
I always say that vehicles.
But then, if you have to buy a vehicle, you're still in this process. You have to buy a vehicle because it breaks down. Get the cheapest one that you can that's going to work. You don't want to get a piece of junk, but get one that's going to work so you don't go into additional debt. And then as you continue to get yourself out of debt, then eventually you'll have the money to be able to save considerably more. And I still don't recommend buying a brand new one, but you could save $10,000 or $15,000 to go out and buy a really nice used car, and then you don't end up with this.
Not only do you save interest, but you save a fortune in insurance.
Yeah.
There's so many different things that add up.
So, okay, next, let's look at instant gratification, pleasure, a false sense of security. Are we talking about drugs or credit? Credit is just like drugs. Credit spending is a habit that needs to be broken. Now, let's see, I got ahead of myself on my notes. Let me find this. Okay, there was a book called Credit, Cash, and Codependency, written by psychologist Yvonne Kay, where she compares addiction to buying with the addiction to drugs, alcohol, and food. And she says, compulsive debtors are people who can get a high from biochemical changes that occur when they spend money. Short-term gain, long-term pain. Short-term gain, it feels good to spend money, but it's a false sense of security. It gives the illusion of having money. You don't really have money, but it gives the illusion of having money. But because you're spending future income with interest, it creates long-term headaches, long-term pain. And debt is one of the main causes of stress in the family. It's one of the main causes of divorce, just like drugs. Financial stress and debt is one of the main causes of divorce. And you know what? It's really no different for Christian families than it is for families in the world. Debt causes an incredible amount of stress. And we've been brainwashed by credit card companies. Would you go into a bank to ask for a loan to go buy clothing or to go out to eat? Of course not. That would be absurd. But that's what you do all the time when you use your credit card. So the $2,000 couch that you bought, how long did the couch stay with you, really? 31 years? That's how long the debt stayed with you, Okay, so you buy something, the debt stays with you for 31 years, but the thing that you buy does not. So you go out to eat and you buy a pizza on a credit card. How long is that debt going to stay with you? 31 years. If you make the minimum payment, it gets mixed in with everything else, but it's going to be there 31 years. How long does the pizza stay with you? I mean, some people say that credit is important for our economy, that credit drives the economy, and that's what, without credit, our economy wouldn't move forward. And yet our government is $27 trillion in debt. It's a debt that just simply cannot be sustained, and eventually it's going to come crumbling down. And when it does, the dollar will collapse and everything else. But there's so much going on in the world right now, I don't know if we're going to last that long, because I don't want to get into all that. But we're looking at major changes in the whole financial system worldwide within the next few months. So Thomas Jefferson said, "I place economy among the first and most important virtues, and public debt as the greatest of dangers to be feared." Thomas Jefferson, public debt is the greatest of dangers to be feared. Right? Yep. And our national debt is going to destroy our economy, but what about our personal economies? Look at this slide. This is the number of bankruptcies. Notice you can't see the dates on the bottom because of that black line, but the date on the bottom starts in 1980, and it stays relatively the same until 85, and then it starts to rise. Notice that in the 80s, there was only about 250,000 debts or bankruptcies. And then the credit industry kicked in. Everybody started using credit. Look at what happened to our bankruptcy. It was up as high as over 2 million. And it still fluctuates, but it's considerably higher than it was in the 80s. So it's destroying our federal situation with the debt, the deficit. It's destroying our personal economies as well. Now we have three major enemies to our financial well-being: convenience, indulgence, and appearance. The CIA. Beware the CIA. Convenience. Hiring someone else to do what you could do yourself. We've already talked about this, right? Anything that is a convenience for you is probably going to cost more. And yeah, it takes more work, it takes more diligence, it takes more time to do it yourself. But sometimes it brings a lot more satisfaction and gratitude to know that you accomplished yourself. Plus, you're going to save a lot of money by doing that. Like digging up sweet potatoes. Yeah. Okay. Indulgence. What is this? Not wanting to wait until we can afford it. I can indulge myself in this little pleasantry. We do it all the time. It's impulse buying. It's a credit card specialty. That's why when you go through the grocery store, they have all those things right up front. Candy bars and magazines and all those kinds of things. They're all impulse buys. Okay, yeah, impulse buying. We even make jokes about it. Like these. A woman's place is in the mall. You laugh at it, right? Whoever said money can't buy happiness didn't know where to shop. These are things I guarantee you that were developed by some sort of association for retailers. And they sell them to us and we use them as jokes. What is this doing? This is normalizing. It's normalizing and reinforcing not only spending, but impulse buying. The truth is, shopping malls are grazing pastures for impulse buyers. So if you're going to go shopping, if you're going to go to the mall or you're going to go to Walmart or something for something specific, you go in, you get what you need, you leave. You never use the mall recreationally. You just go in and spend time and walk around and window shop. Guaranteed, if you got credit in your plastic in your wallet, you're going to spend money. Yeah. Right. Make a list and stick to it. Yeah, don't buy anything else. For those of you that are watching online, what she just said, I don't know if you can hear her, but she said that since COVID and having groceries delivered, her daughter was saying she's realized how much money she saves every time she has deliveries because she's avoiding the impulse buying. And that makes absolute sense. If you're not browsing up and down the aisles, you're not doing all that impulse buying. You're only buying what you need. So impulse buying, very dangerous. It's a credit card specialty. And it's been studied and proven that we actually spend more money when we're using credit than when we use cash. Even if it's a debit card, it's easier to spend money if you're using a card than if you use cash. So cash is self-policing. And then you have things like shopping channels, infomercials, internet. You know, if you didn't need it 5 minutes ago, if you didn't even know about it 5 minutes ago, why do you absolutely have to have it now? Well, I have to have it now because they said this special only lasts for 10 more minutes. How many things have you bought on impulse like that? And women and impulse buying. I'll tell you what, man. Women love clothes. They fill their closets with clothes and shoes and all of this stuff. Men don't do that. They just don't. Men buy things like snowmobiles and lawn tractors and sailboats. Impulse buying. Yeah. Now, sometimes to be honest, some of the things that women call a man's toy is actually a real honest to goodness tool. That would be like, getting a better lawnmower is not just a toy. I need it. It's like if I would call her dishwasher a toy. It's a tool that needs to be done. Yeah, but a lot of things that we buy, men or women, are just toys, and much of it is bought on impulse. How many of you have a basement or a garage full of stuff? You know what I'm talking about, that rowing machine that makes a wonderful clothes rack. Ask me how I know this. So the next time you want to make a purchase, especially if you think it might be an impulse purchase, do yourself a favor and wait 24 hours before you purchase it. And even better, if you still have some credit cards, you really need to get rid of them completely. But if you still have a credit card, here's what you do. You take your credit card, you get a plastic jar, like a peanut butter jar or something like that. Fill it with water, put it in ice, put it in your freezer. You can't take it out and put it in the microwave. You'll probably destroy the chip in there. So you're going to have to take it out and let it sit for a while. And that will give you the time that you need to cool off and then decide that you don't really need to buy that thing. So then we have appearance. So what are we talking about here? Adult peer pressure. The Joneses. Yep. Let's look at the next one. Keeping up with the debt-ridden Joneses. If you live in an anywhere near affluent neighborhood at all, there's a huge amount of peer pressure to keep your lawn manicured and have a nice car in the driveway, not an old rust bucket, that sort of thing. But even if you live in a lesser area, there's still a lot of peer pressure to keep up with the Joneses, to keep up with your neighbor. It's can be sometimes embarrassing. Yeah, absolutely. I think this affects more of us than we realize. Peer pressure.
Yeah, the guy in that great big house looks like a millionaire, but he's the one that's drowning in debt.
Yeah, he's probably got more debt than you do.
The real millionaire is living in a simple house and
Right. So then we have get-rich-quick schemes. Lotteries, gambling, risky investments, something-for-nothing ventures. Why do we do this? Well, I think that, a lot of people think that if they just had more money, then they would be happy. Then they would be successful. They're unhappy with their life, and so they're looking for something better, so they go buy lottery tickets. And that's just, what is it, like 5 million to 1 chance of winning one of those things? The stupid tax, yeah. And what makes it even worse, and I've seen people do this, when they use their credit card to buy lottery tickets. Then they're paying interest on something that they're just throwing away. They're not even getting a couch for it. They're paying the interest for something they're just going to throw away. And so many lottery winners actually end up bankrupt within 5 years. Why is that? Because they haven't changed their paradigm. They get more income. Lottery winnings are usually not lump sum. They're usually an annuity where you get like $10,000 a month or something like that if you win millions. So all of a sudden they have all this money that on a monthly basis that they've never had before. So they go out and they start getting more and more in debt because now they have the money to take care of it. And a couple of years later, they end up in bankruptcy. And it ends up bringing more heartache than joy. So following conventional financial advice. It's just simply not working for 96% of us. These are followers following followers. You know, I was talking during the break about the fact that I have a degree in accounting, and I've passed the CPA exam, and I can tell you absolutely, most accountants don't know anything about this. They're being taught. They teach you what they've been taught. Certified, financial planners don't understand any of this. They're giving us conventional wisdom that just simply doesn't work because that's what they've been taught. So here's some of the things they're telling us. Don't pay off your house. It's the best tax shelter you can have. This has never made sense to me. You pay $1 in interest to save 28 cents in tax. If you're in the 28% bracket, you pay $1 in interest to the bank so you can save 28%, 28 cents in interest. I'll tell you what, if you think that's a good deal, you can invest with me as much as you want. Every dollar you bring me, I'll give you 28 cents back. Sound like a deal? No takers? So remember the lucky family that we were looking at? They had an $87,000 mortgage. They paid $138,000 in interest to save $38,000 in taxes. So what that means is that they lost $99,000 because they kept their house because it's their last great tax shelter. And by doing that, they lost $99. If you go to a certified financial planner and he's going to help you get started on investments and you tell him, I think I'm going to pay off my house first. Don't do that. That's a great tax shelter. You got to hang on to that. Try this. And what they're going to do, they're going to try to sell you something that they're going to get a commission on, like whole, life insurance or some kind of an annuity or variety of different, things. So they're vested in selling you things where they get a commission. They don't earn a dime if you pay off your mortgage. So that conventional wisdom from financial planners just doesn't work. Then we have pay yourself first, invest 10%. They will say, and rightly so, you need to start taking that 10% right off the top and start investing it in yourself. And I agree with that. But they're talking about investing it in traditional investments. Oh, and then they also say to accumulate a ready cash reserve, then start investing. The ready cash reserve, they say, is 6 months worth of your income. So that if you lose your job, you've got 6 month cushion so you can find another one. I'm saying take that 10% and pay off all your debts first and then start investing. And that's how you end up with that $1.2 million 28 years later. Investing first when you still got debt just simply doesn't work. Here's a chart that shows the difference between the conventional wisdom and the way we're talking about. The first two columns is someone who starts immediately saving or investing their accelerator margin, which in our example is $390. So the first thing they do is they start saving $390 until they get their cash reserve, which is 6 months worth of their income, and it takes them almost 4 years to save that. And then they start investing the $390 into investments that are giving them a 10% return on their investment. 28 years down at the bottom, 28 years and 4 months later, they're out of debt, and they're worth, in the second column there, $494,000. Not bad, right? Now let's look at the two columns on the right. They're taking that $390 accelerator margin, paying off their debts first in 7 years, and then they can start saving their cash reserve. And because they have less debt, they can live on less, so they don't need as large of a cash reserve. And they save that in 7 months, and then they start saving the entire accumulated accelerator margin. And look at the bottom line, 28 years later on the right, $1.2 million. So this is using the exact same amount of money, that $390 accelerator margin. On the left, they're investing first. On the right, they're paying off debts first. What do you think? And then there's consolidation loans. That's another thing that they recommend. Many times they can get, commissions on consolidation loans. Consolidation loans don't work. All they do is they get you deeper into debt, charging you even more interest over a longer period of time.
Once again, it's a monthly.
Now here's what happens. You've got all these credit cards and they're real high interest, and you look at, okay, I can get a second mortgage on my house and use it as a consolidation loan and pay off all of my credit cards. You get a lower interest, lower payments. Sounds great, right? The problem is people do that and then they don't cut up their credit cards. They still have their credit cards. And 2 years later, all their credit cards are back up to the limit again. And then they go and get another consolidation loan and do it again. Yes. Right. I know someone who used consolidation loans on a regular basis. Every 3 or 4 years, she would get a new consolidation loan on her house. And she actually built the house and with a 30-year mortgage. And about 40 years later, when she died, she owed twice as much on the house as what it cost her to build it. Because every time she rolled over another consolidation loan, she was increasing the mortgage on her house, and she never learned, and she kept doing it over and over again. Consolidation loans just got her deeper and deeper into debt. And the second mortgage is secured debt. And what you're doing with a consolidation loan is you're taking unsecured debt, credit cards, especially if you get a second mortgage or an equity line of credit, that's against your house. That's a secured debt. If you default on a credit card, the only thing they can do is come against you for a judgment for the amount that you owe on the card. If you roll it over into a second mortgage, if you default on it, they can take your house. So that's a very dangerous situation. The only time I ever recommend using a consolidation card or a consolidation loan is if somebody's trying to work this system and they're so far under that they can't even see. And so get a consolidation loan. It will lower your payments, but it will only work if you then completely cut up your credit cards and never use them again. Then a consolidation loan is used as a tool to help you get out of debt, not as a tool to help you get further into debt, which is usually the case. And consolidation loans don't address the problem of why you got into debt in the first place. Like this woman that I was talking about, she kept doing a consolidation loan. She never changed her habits, and she just kept going deeper and deeper into debt all the time. If conventional financial planning principles worked, 96% of us would not end up as financial failures. Because these principles have been around for years, and they just don't work. Okay. So in review of everything that we're talking about here, let's look at the 6 steps to financial freedom. First one, immediately start operating 100% on cash. Now, it seems like an alien concept, but it is possible. People just might look at you funny. Okay, so immediately start operating 100% on cash. Number 2, stop creating new debt. Stop the bleeding. In first aid, the first thing you do is clear the airway. The very next thing you do is stop the bleeding. You've got to stop the bleeding. If you don't, it's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. It just keeps going. There's no way to get out of debt if you're still creating new debt. And perform plastic surgery.
That's right.
Yep. This is something that can be very difficult emotionally for a lot of people to do. Or if you're here and your spouse is not, and you tell your spouse, we're going to close all of our credit card accounts, yeah, be ready for that. Can have all kinds of negative reactions. You've got to destroy all of them. Call the company, close the account. Of course, you still owe a balance, so you'll still have to pay, but it'll keep you from being able to make any new payments on it. New expenses on it. Now, if you just emotionally feel like you can't do that, you've got to have an emergency fund, so you're going to keep a credit card. Get rid of as many as you can, and then, like I said, keep the one that you've got and freeze it in a block of ice so you're not going to use it for any kind of impulse buying. And then if you have a real true emergency, you can use it out. You can take it out and use it for that. Like, for instance, if you all of a sudden to have a real big car expense that you got to get fixed, or you can't get to work and you don't have the money for it, then you got a car, you can use that. If you do that, then put that right back into your debt elimination system and start rolling it over and get it paid off as fast as you can. There's another thing here is that when you first start with your rollover, your roll-up on your debt elimination, you don't have a whole lot of money, extra money. But as you get into it a little bit, your roll-up is bigger. Remember I said for Joe Lucky, after he paid off his car, he had $600. He was going to go and blow it on a weekend. Well, that means he's got $600 a month that he's using as his accelerated payment. So if he's got to put a couple of tires on the car, he can just skip the accelerated payment for that 1 month and use that cash to put tires on the car and then get right back into it again. So the fear that I don't have an emergency fund very quickly takes care of itself once you get into it and you build a bigger rollover accelerator margin, because that can be your emergency fund. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So, all of our lives we've been told that we got to build our credit rating. Our credit rating is important. Let me ask you something. Why do we need a credit rating? To get more into debt. And so once you start into the system, you realize you don't need a credit rating because you'll never be in debt again. And so the use of a card just to build your credit rating is irrelevant. But many of us, because of the emotional issues here, come up with many excuses of why we are the exception. We can control it. You've been duped in believing that destroying your credit card will diminish your quality of life, when in reality it will greatly increase your quality of life. Anything that you can buy on a credit card can be bought cheaper with cash because you don't have the interest that you're paying for it. And so I'll be very blunt. If you're not willing to destroy your credit cards, you're doomed to a life of endless debt. In a way, you're really saying, I can't live within my means. I have to spend it. I have to borrow money. I cannot live within my means. But there's another thing here that's even deeper, and I want to talk about this a little later, is in many ways I'm saying to God, God, you can't provide my needs. I don't have the faith to trust you to provide my needs. I'm going to have to use my own resources and go into debt to do it. Okay, so the next one, number 3, pay off debts first. Remember I said this right at the beginning, pay off debts, then invest. This is actually the best first use of your money. Remember that 31% return on investment you can earn by paying off your debts first? And you can actually live on less after you're debt-free. And you can save and invest more faster. You can become what we call invulnerable, which brings peace of mind. You're not vulnerable to any changes in the economy. You're not vulnerable to losing your job or anything like that. It brings incredible peace of mind because you know that if you lose your job and everything is paid off, including your house, your cars, everything, nobody can come in and take it away from you. And if you're in that situation, you can go out and get a job flipping burgers for minimum wage and do just fine, because the only expenses you really have when it comes down to it is your groceries, your utilities, and insurance.
Taxes on the house.
And taxes. Okay, there's always taxes. Number 4, after you get out of debt in number 3, number 4, accelerate your debt payments. Create an accelerator margin of 10%. Now, like I said before, go as high as you can with your accelerator. If you can do 15%, by all means do it. If you can only do 5%, do whatever you can. And in fact, it still works even without an accelerator margin. If Joe Lucky had started the roll-up without any accelerator margin at all, he still would have gotten out of debt. But instead of doing it in 7 years, it would have taken him 11 years and 4 months to get out of debt. And then he would only have half as large of a nest egg at the end, but he would still be out of debt just by stopping using all credit cards. As soon as you pay off the first small credit card, you use that as your accelerator to start your roll-up. And then after you accelerate your payments and you get out of debt, then you build a ready cash reserve. Americans on average save 4% of their income. But when you're debt-free, you can save 30 to 50% of your income. And then you build wealth. It's like we've talked about, after you're out of debt, you can invest all of that money you were wasting on debt payments, and you can start to build your wealth. So that's the end of the seminar as far as the secular part of how to get out of debt and all the financial stuff. I do have one more short section, about a half hour. It's the biblical perspective, what the Bible says about debt, what God says about debt. I was hoping to finish this by noon, but we didn't make that. So you want to stick around and do the rest of that, or you want to take a break first? Or so anyway, I hope that this has been helpful. I think that some of you have had your eyes opened at how fast you can get out of debt and what you can do. And, you know, I told you at the beginning what it has done for our life, that has totally changed our lives. And it gives me great joy and great pleasure to be able to see other people go, wow, this is amazing, and get excited about it, you know.
So there you go, guys. By now, you know how to get out of debt, and you know why you should get out of debt. But we have one more part 4, and we want to look at, see what God has to say about debt. You know, many times preachers talk about finances from the pulpit, and for the most part, the only thing they talk about is tithing. Now, don't get me wrong, tithing is very important, and we do it all the time. But there's a lot more to it. And so we are going to take a look at what the scripture says specifically about debt. So part 4, I call the biblical perspective on debt. And we will be releasing that tomorrow. Join us then.